heal from intergenerational trauma. I am your host, Kai Marie. To find out more information about the topics discussed today, visit kaimarie.com. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Healing Element Podcast. I am your host, Kai Marie. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. Tonight's topic is the gateway to religious extremism. I have my special guest today, Shevel Mavins. She is founder and CEO of Addiction Prevention, and she is also the creator and host of the Embrace Wellness podcast. So I'll make sure that I put her website and also her YouTube channel, so that way you can check out her great content on her podcast and show support. I'm really excited about tonight's conversation. It should be quite interesting, but also this is actually the last episode for season 2. So I will be doing a couple specials live on this platform, but as far as every Tuesday night, that will come to an end, sadly, today, but we'll pick up again as we get closer into the spring. So I will announce when season 3 starts. So I'm really excited for this conversation, but also sad that this is the last episode for season 2. So with that being said, as I said, Shevel Mavins is here with us. We're going to be talking about religious extremism. So what does that mean? We're going to learn about the psychological draw of extreme religious groups and why it's hard once somebody joins such a group, why it can be challenging for them to leave, and just diving into a little bit that more. And I think a lot of times you've seen probably shows on television where you've seen extreme religious groups, and you're like, well, why don't they just leave? If I was them, like if X and Y happen, I would be out. But there's a reason why it is hard to leave these type of groups. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. And of course, we want to help anyone who has experienced this, so that way you can know how you can begin your own healing journey in order to not repeat any cycles that, due to the trauma that you experience, not to repeat any cycles with your young ones, if you have children or if you care. If you take care of any children. So we're going to jump in to our conversation. And first, so that way we're all kind of starting out on a clear understanding. Shevel, again, welcome to the platform. Happy to have you. Can you share with us, what does religious extremism even mean?
Okay, well, thank you, Kai. So the technical part of religious extremism is like an ideology that is considered to be far outside our mainstream attitudes of our society. So when we look at mainstream religion, we think of, Catholics, Baptists, Methodists, what our mainstream religions are. So when you're outside of that, those extreme religions is considered a cult. And a lot of times what I'm seeing now, they're trying to change the word from cult to a social movement. But when we look at these extreme religious religions, sometimes they break off from mainstream religious organizations and go extreme. And I know we're going to talk more about the extreme part of it, because a lot of times you will see them telling people to stay away from their families, or they have different type of religious rituals that may happen. What I've seen a lot of times, you have followers, which are the members of this cult-like or social movement, if you want to call it, religion, is that a lot of times you will see they can be used as sex slaves, practicing suicide drills. I know we're going to talk more about a couple of these groups that were located in the United States. These followers, they're usually isolated from their loved ones. So when mainstream looking in, we're like, okay, that's not right. What kind of religion that would want you to do these things, or why would you want to do these to your members? But realistically, cult-like religion, extreme religious belief, it exists all over, not just the United States, all over the world. And it happened right in our back door. And I know we're going to talk about some of them tonight.
Very true. And the thing is, what kind of led me to wanting to have this conversation was I was watching it was a program on television in which they were talking about all these different like extreme religious groups or cults. And I was kind of wondering, I was like, wow, I wonder, because you just kind of see what happens when the when the person has joined and kind of like what goes on their experience while they're there. So it's kind of like, why would someone want to join? And then when you're seeing what they've gone through, like the different type of abuses, it's like, well, why don't they just leave? So I wanted to kind of dive into, because it's not that easy to just leave, especially if, all your family's there. And then what happens after you leave, you're not going to have anyone that you can talk to. Your whole support system is also in this group as well, which can make it challenging to leave. So we're going to talk about a few of these groups that were probably very, very familiar to anyone who is listening or watching right now. So first, we want to talk about Jonestown, and that happened in the late 70s.
Yeah, the Jonestown massacre. The leader was Jim Jones, and I remember hearing about this as a child. You hear things on the news, or you hear your family talking about it. But with Jim Jones, he actually had a church, and I think it started out in Indiana. And then that church was investigated, and I'm not sure if it got shut down or he left, but there was fraud going on. There was abuse of children, allegations of that. And when he left that church, he went to California. And one of the things that he did to get his members, a lot of his members were African American, and during that time, you had a lot of African American going through different things in the United States. So he focused on, don't you want to be with people that love you, that respect you? We can create a society that you'll be respected. People will love you. I mean, and you're hearing this because you're looking at, okay, this is what I'm dealing with in my society. He's telling me things that I want to hear, that I want. Why not? And he's using the word of God along with bringing people in. But unfortunately, with Jim Jones, he had a lot of following. And then when he went to California, he was also paranoid. And he got so paranoid because they were investigating him again, and the church there, he left and went to Jamestown, Guyana. And I think he had over 900 members in his organization. And some things went on. There's a long story with, a family member had connections to someone in the United States Senate. And I think they went down to try to get that family member out and try to talk to him. That didn't go over well because his members killed him, and along with some other people. I think one person actually survived that stabbing. But at that time, what he ended up doing is doing a mass murder-suicide mission. He had people drink cyanide. He instructed the parents and nurses because he had nurses to give the children the first dose of cyanide, which I believe I read he mixed it in Kool-Aid so the children would drink it. And then the adult members were instructed to also drink this concoction of cyanide. And at the end, it was 909 people that died, and over 200 of them were children. So, you wonder, why would you give your kids cyanide, or why would you even take this? But it goes back to what he preached. These people that were members for a long time in his organization, I know we're going to talk more, but is that manipulation, playing on that person's vulnerability, telling them what they want to hear. A lot of times you will find these leaders telling them things they want to hear, but no one is ever going to be able to give them. You're going to live in this utopia state. And that's what he said. When you died, we're going to live in utopia. And so people believed that. They wanted to believe it. They believed it. And he did take care of them. They had somewhere to live. He bought that land in Jamestown in Guyana, but he was also taking people money. He was abusing children. I heard he slept with a lot of the women there. But again, he was looked up to. He was worshipped. So they wanted to please him. And that's what these cult leaders / abusers do. They take the situation and manipulate individuals and tell them what they want to hear, and that's what they want. They want that someone to hear them, someone to understand them, and you got to think about it. It's almost like they're constantly being groomed every day, and to the point they get the members to groom other members, and it happened, over and over again until this cult or this religion or these members get larger and larger because they go out and recruit people, which is what he did.
It's so interesting, and you're right. It's kind of like, what type of mind state must a parent be in by that point? Because who knows what other traumas that they've experienced and what else they had to do against their will by the time they got to the point where they have to feed their baby this deadly mixture.
Right.
And so what we're going to do is just go through a couple of the many of the these groups that people have heard of before, and then we're going to drill down more into the draw. So the other one that we wanted to mention, you guys have probably heard of David Koresh, and that was in Waco, Texas. I remember this one vaguely, but I do remember this one. Can you share with us surrounding this case?
Yeah, David Koresh. He wasn't the original. Let me start by saying this. Remember when I said in the beginning that you have mainstream religion, and sometimes you have people that break away and go at, you have mainstream religion, and the people that break away create their own religion and can be like cult-like. This is one of them. He actually started out as a 7-day Adventist church. And one of the leaders that he worked close with passed away, and he took over this religious cult group in 1983. And he started changing the messaging that from the original person, and I think the message he would call is the serpent root. Now, he claimed to be the final prophet. He claimed that God told him that he's the final prophet, that he should do this teaching. He actually married the ex-leader's wife. I mean, it just goes on and on. And he not only recruited his members from Waco, Texas, he went out to California, the UK, Israel, Australia. He went all over the world. But with him, with what they were finding, one of the things that led up to the Waco fire is that they found out that he was having sex with underage girls, the members there, severely spanking the children. Of course, he had lots of weapons, so he was preparing for something. And there was a 51-day standoff with the federal government. And I believe it was 81 members, including 18 children, lost their lives. And again, he went out recruiting people, telling people what they want to hear. There were a lot of women that were single moms that joined this group. A lot of young girls that, maybe want to get out their parents' home or, homeless, I was reading. So he, again, is that vulnerability, that they're looking for to pull them in and say, I'm here for you. I'm doing God's work. And and if you want to live the life and be treated right, you have to follow these teachings and follow me, because are you going to say no to the prophet? And then if you're in this group, you have to think, if you say no, you have all of these hundreds of members looking at you. I'm like, well, why are you saying no? So again, is that I want to call it brainwashing, not only by the leaders, by other members as well.
And so true. And when you said as far as the people that were drawn to this, or people that were on the margins, vulnerable population, and being able to see something that looks like it can provide love, security, comfort, who wouldn't want that, right? So it doesn't come off as, getting hit over the head with the bat. It comes up like, this is a loving place. This is what you need. Don't you see that your life is chaos right now, and nobody else is here for you? What would it be like to have a family that's here to love and support you? You're on the margins. You don't have anybody. That is something that you're like, oh my God, I need this. What do I need to do to be a part of it? And so I think that's so important to explain that there was certain people that were targeted, that are targeted for these type of groups. And there are people that really don't have that home structure, family structure, support system, and are kind of like out here fending for themselves. And then you have a group that comes in to say, we're here to support you. If you're hungry, we'll feed you. If you need shelter, we'll give you shelter. And if you're on the margins, you don't have anything, that's something that you want.
Right. And I think it's also important to mention that this can happen in any social class. This can happen with any race, gender. Is something that you feel is missing, and they will tell you they can fill that void. So, and I think we're going to talk about another extreme religion that have a lot of that have is very wealthy. So I don't want people to believe that, oh, it's this homeless person that's sitting on, the bus stop, which that could be the person as well, but it could be your CEO as well. So you have to remember, for a leader, a cult leader, to get these members, they have to be very charming, charismatic. They have to be able to, I always say, sell ice to an Eskimo. They have to be able to really talk to that person, and is a psychology behind it. They're a master manipulator. So that can happen with anybody. If they're playing on your emotion. And like you said, Kai, who would not want to feel love, warmth, someone's taking care of them, someone is looking out for my well-being? And it comes to the point you become dependent on them.
So true. And I'm going to go to the next one that we're going to talk about. But I think I'd watched the story of David Koresh. I think it was on Netflix or something like that. And I think one of the members was like a guy who went to Harvard or something. So you're right. It's not as though, they do go after a certain group, but just because you may have a certain type of it's more like a personality type, or someone that feels like something's is missing, than like class. Right. Even if you're thinking of family structure, home, and love, you can be a wealthy person and still not have that, and still feel like something is missing. How many times have we heard stories of people who have so much money, cars, houses, and they're like, I still felt empty. So these type of groups can definitely fill that need. So again, as you said, I think it's very important to point that out, that it's not just someone who is financially strapped, is someone that has this void that's trying to find something to fill it. So I think that's very important to definitely point out. So the next one we're going to go to, before we kind of dive into the why, is Heaven's Gate. Now, I remember this one. I remember that. It's not funny. I don't know why I just laughed, but I remember this one because I love astronomy, and this was all about the Hale-Bopp comet. Is it Hale-Bopp comet? So I remember I was out looking for this comet, not because of Heaven's Gate, but I was just like, this is cool to see this comet. And I remember I was so intrigued by this. And I remember talking to my mom, like, so they think they're going to ride off on this comet? I was just so like, I don't know. This just caught my attention. So I definitely want to dive into this one, because this was the one I thought was most interesting.
And it is. And it's very, very interesting. So again, like I talked about, the mainstream attitude, or the mainstream religion that we know. Again, you have this, I believe his last name was Applewhite. I believe. Um, yeah, Applewhite, I believe it was his last name. He was a son of a Presbyterian, I believe I pronounced that right, minister. And he went to church and his dad preached, but he also, this gentleman believed in aliens. And he combined these two. Him and his wife, they went out and they were an odd couple. They were just odd. But I believe, and here's a little bit. I know I'm all over the place. They actually met each other in I think she was a nurse in a psychiatric hospital. That's where they met. Now, I don't know if he was visiting someone or if he was a patient. I could see how he could be a patient, but I don't know if he was a patient, so I'm not going to say that. But anyways, these two got together, and she believed in like stars and alignment and everything, and he believed that, and somehow they decide to have this Heaven's Gate religious UFO religious beliefs. And they went out and found members. So what he told his members that he was the second coming of Jesus. And God was an alien, and that they were living in the end of times. Okay. So I'm trying not to laugh because it's not funny, but it's just like, so again,
I am too. It's just so, yeah, sorry, continue.
But again, you just like, and again, I guess, depending on how you was raised and your religion, and you like, somebody tell you that God was an alien, but that's what he believed, and there's many people who believe that. So they use science fiction and the Bible to teach their members. For example, one of the things they taught their members, that the Virgin Mary was taken into a spaceship and impregnated with Jesus. Okay. So again, they believe that the world they were living here on earth was not for them. They believe in utopia. They believe that there was their life was not here, was in space. So what they end up doing is, I believe it was 39 members, and the leader, they took applesauce laced with barbiturates, and they drank vodka and placed bags over their heads. So I'm assuming plastic bags. So basically they went to sleep and suffocated. And they believed that they weren't killing themselves. They were freeing themselves from this body, and that their souls would be picked up in a spacecraft flying that Hale-Bopp comet that you was looking out, Kai. Maybe you saw them. No, I'm just kidding. But they believed that spacecraft was going to take them, and at the same time, I think at the same time they would be passing Earth, that their spirit was going to get on this spaceship, and they're going to live this world forever in space, in their new home. So
there's that.
I can't really explain how. I mean, you would have to like science fiction, I would assume, to be in this group.
And I think the thing is of what you're saying is this continuous thing of somebody providing to you, and you did say this in the beginning, this like utopia, this perfect world society where you're welcome, you're like, there's this theme, this reoccurring theme of what these leaders are offering people, which again, everyone wants love. As people, we naturally like to be a part of something bigger than ourselves. And right. These are all these type of emotions and needs that these type of groups play upon. And so I think there was, hello, good evening. And I think there was one other thing that I read. Now, this is some time ago that I read it, so hopefully I'm right. I think the men were had to castrate themselves or something too, because I think they couldn't. It was like you couldn't show any type of sexual feeling or something like that. I think they also did that, if memory serves me correctly. So it was a lot going on, and so we're going to move right along.
Yeah, not to get off the topic, because I know I can run down a rabbit hole with this stuff. there's a lot of extreme groups that believe in depriving themselves from any type of sexual pleasure, um, um, help them in their mission. So I don't know what the connection is. I haven't read that about that group. I just couldn't get over um, this the comet and the spaceship and the Earth, and so yeah. Yeah.
It's a lot to unpack. And so what we're going to do now is to jump into, and we've already talked about it, but we're going to talk a little bit more. So those of you that are listening with us live, thank you so much for joining. And please make sure you hit the thumbs up button. And please make sure that you share. If you enjoy the content on this channel, this is a wonderful way to show your thanks by supporting and sharing this information with others. And it's, you know, even though there's different points Shevel and I are kind of like making a little laugh about, but overall we're saying that, you know, if you found yourself or you have a family member who has was in some type of group like this, currently in it, just to kind of provide some background as to why that may have happened. Now, every case is different, so this is, again, very general, but just so that way, if you're like, I don't even understand why they would do this, hopefully this can kind of explain a little bit as to the why. So now we're going to talk a little bit about the draw, which we talked about before. So anything else you wanted to dive into more on that part, Shevel?
No, I think we pretty much cover it, and I think we're going to talk about more when we get into the family part, like how to help someone. Because again, if we may not understand, we may not never understand why the loved one or someone we know get into this, but that really doesn't have anything. That really not going to help us getting them out, you know. And and I'll talk more about what I meant by that.
Okay, perfect. So now we wanted to talk a little bit about your experience working with someone that was involved in such a group, just so that people know like what you're providing us, that you've also gone through it with people that you've worked with.
Yeah, I had a few patients that were in, and they will tell you themselves now that it was an occult religion. One went from the East Coast; they were actually recruited and went to the West Coast. And I had another one that was right in upstate New York. And so one of the things is that for what draw people into this is they're looking for answers. You know, many times these leaders are promising the members these unattainable desires, which no one in society has promised them. You know, I'm quite sure no one told the members that the Haley Bopp comet in a spacecraft was going to take them to this world that they live forever. Or no one said that, you know, David Koresh, that, you know, he was the last prophet. I mean, no one, and then I can provide you with all of these things. So the eternal life, constant peace of mind, financial security, a lot of times they lived together. They did not have to worry about a roof over their head or when the next meal is coming. So that's that draw for people. In my experience, you know, I see that people who have experienced some type of trauma in their life, maybe low self-esteem, not fitting into mainstream society, feeling like an outcast, a lot of times the anger, shared hatred, and vulnerability is what draw people into this. That's what I've seen. You know, when, you know, and I talked to you earlier today, Kai, about this. When you see, when we look at extreme, what is it, Islamic people, right, that go and strap bombs to their bodies and take their life, and again, that's the extreme part, because everyone Muslim don't believe in that. This is these extreme groups, and you sit and wonder, what would it make you do something like that, right? Why would you take your life to do this in the name of a God? What God, you know, that would want you to do that? But then you have to look at the flip side of where this person is coming from. You have someone that bombed their home, arrested their family member, may not have had anything to do with what they're being accused of. Now, if you ever seen, what a area look like once it's been bombed, you can't plant any food there. You have this, your anger, you have this hatred, and they play on that. You know what? If you come and follow this religion with me, I will take care of you, and we're going to make those people pay. They play on that anger, that shared hatred. So yeah, they're willing to go and get you back because you know why? I'm doing this in the name of my God. And when I die, I'm going to get, live in paradise. So that's that draw for people. Whatever that.
I'm sorry. Could I add really quick to that? Also, I think when you said that, it made me think of control. So sometimes these are people that may feel that their life is out of control, like what you said about the individual who lost their family. That person that has all the money in the world, they still can feel their life is spiraling out of control. And in steps someone that's like, I can bring some order to the chaos. So I just wanted to say that too. When you said that, it made me think, if my life is chaotic, I don't know up from down, I just lost my family, I don't know what to do with my life. And someone comes, gives me meaning, helps put my life back in order. And so why not join something like that? And then as you had said, like now I have the opportunity to kind of pay back the people that took this from me. Mm-hmm. So I think it's so important to have these conversations because it's really to unpack and, as you said, not just say, well, I don't know why they did that. It's like, look at the root causes of why people respond in certain ways. That's the only way that we can begin to affect change. So I just wanted to add that part in about that control when you had said that.
And I think that's important. What you said is look at the root, because we can always look at and be like, why are you doing that? Why are you acting like that? Why won't people take the vaccination? Why this? Well, wait. The question is, what had happened? What happened was that make you feel this way, and if you can, sometimes I always, with any type of obstacle and issue, I always try to take a look at that. I see what you're doing, but why are you doing this? What had happened? What took place for you to feel this way? And again, it's sometimes it's difficult when your feelings are involved when it's a loved one or a family member. But if you start questioning them, like, why are you doing this? That's stupid. That's dumb. You're going to push them away. And that leader is going to look at them and say, I told you they don't care about you. Look at you. They're not even respecting. I'm here helping you. I'm here. That's that manipulation, that control. And that's just going to draw that person even closer to that leader, that religion, and further away from the people who really love them. So again, I think with any situation, but especially with this, let's look at the root issue. What happens? Because that's what's going to help you understand why they're doing what they're doing. And that's going to help you get them out of it as well.
Right. So true. And when you said that, when people, when family members are maybe frustrated, not understanding, and they're like, I don't know why you're doing this. Are you crazy? All that. But you're right. That leader then can say, because they don't understand you, which that person probably already felt before this whole ordeal with meeting, being involved with this new group. They probably already felt like an outcast, or again, not having a connection to anybody that can help ground them. So for people that are listening and maybe they know somebody or have a family member who is involved with one of these type of groups, what advice would you give to them?
Well, one of the things I want to tell you is that what these people are experiencing, like that root, like what they're experiencing when they're in that cult, is psychological manipulation. They're manipulating them. That's that strong influence. That's one of the reasons why they cut you off from your family, so they can have you to themselves, and that change the person's behavior, change that person's perception. They do things as far as manipulation with any other type of manipulation, that underhanded tactic. The leader, like I said, they're usually charming, and they can they will, talk, I care about you. If your family care about you, they wouldn't have done this to you. So it's understanding that psychological manipulation they're using, and that's lying, guilt, blaming others, emotional abuse, and they will take that and change that person to what they want. So it is difficult. And what I will say, one of the things that will work, not only with a therapist working with them or even family trying to talk with them, is that, and it's something I use always, it's called motivational interviewing. And there are like 5 main principles. And this is one of the things I love. It takes longer than other approaches, but what you do is reflective listening. And I think that's important anyways, reflective listening. So you're going to express empathy with that person, reflective listening. Whatever they say, you repeat it back. If they say, well, they don't treat you, they treat me good. So I'm glad you found someone to treat you good. That's important, to have someone that really cares about you and treat you well. So you're listening. They know you're listening what they're saying because you're reflecting it back and you're saying, I have empathy. I understand that. One of the things that you want to develop discrepancy between what they're saying and current behavior. And you're going to do that gently. Well, I understand they care about you, but why would they not want you to talk to your family? That's not what you would, if someone care about you, how is that helpful? Because, we love you, a phone call, a visit. So that what you're doing in a gentle way is, they're going to think, well, that's right. Why would they want me to? Because you want them to start thinking, because again, most of us is like this. People don't want you to tell them what to do. It's like, you telling me what to do. How are you going to tell me? But what you want to do is take their own words and use it back on them for them to start thinking for themselves. Because right now, when they're being manipulated, they're not thinking, they're being controlled. Big thing, and this is going to be huge, if you're a loved one trying to get your family member out of this, is avoid arguing. That's going to be difficult. And being direct, like not to confront them, like that confrontation, that's not going to help. In any type of situation, is not going to help. So again, try not to argue. If they escalate, you try to de-escalate. Say, look, I just want to see you. I just want to talk to you. I'm not here to argue with you. I just care about you. I haven't talked to you in a while. This is why, I'm reaching out to you. That usually calm people down. And, what you want to do is, one of the other things is support them in a way of, being optimistic, say, I'm glad that you're taking, you're taking the responsibility, taking care of yourself. But again, I'm just here. I just want to see you. I just want to have some type of relationship with you. I want to see my grandchild. If a child is involved, I would love to spend time with them. And if they say, well, I can't do that, and you're like, well, why? Don't you still care about me as a family member? So again, you're pushing it back onto them. And I think it's important too, that if you know someone that is getting involved in an organization like this, don't wait until they're in it. Do it immediately, because that manipulation is starting. And the longer you're in that abusive relationship, because that's what it is, the harder it's going to be to get them out. The harder it's going to be for them to break away from it. And another thing I think is big is to have that unconditional love. Because if they do decide to leave, they're going to start blaming themselves. When you've been traumatized, a lot of things, you blame yourself. I'm so dumb. I'm so stupid. Why did I do this? Why did I get in this? How could I believe in something like this? And they're going to be embarrassed. And a lot of times we choose to stay in a situation than admitting or wanting to feel embarrassed about it. So I think you just continue to build that trust, be non-judgmental, don't criticize them. And it's difficult when your feelings are, and I mean, even as a therapist, when your family's involved, your feelings, all the stuff you learn in school go out the window. So it's like, let me call another person in here to help me, because I can't be rational. I'm going to tell them the real deal. That's not going to help the situation. And if you feel that you can't do that, reach out to another organization. There's several different organizations out there, or do your research, or have someone as an ally to come with you to have these conversations. You can do good cop, bad cop. That works. Get a person, and they say something like, well, why would you want to be in this religion? Like, don't say that to her. She's a grown woman. She can make her decisions. They're like, oh yeah, she understands what I'm saying. It's just, you use what you use to get them out. And I think that's very important. If you can't do it alone, create a team that can help you. And sometimes that team has to be the ones to rescue them as well. But try to stay in a neutral place, with that loved one or that friend, and don't harp on about a cult, because again, they don't believe they're in a cult. People that are in a cult don't believe they're in a cult. So I wouldn't even use that word with them, really, but instead just ask questions on how they're doing. How can I help you? I would like to see you more.
Right. I think those are all great points. And if anybody has any questions or comments, just drop it in the chat and we'll make sure that we bring those up. And I think we have Neuromelon, a lot of them believe they are working towards the greater good of humanity. The irony is a cult isn't that variant from religion. Yeah. But that's so true. And one thing I wanted to kind of go back to as we start to come to a close tonight is that, as you said, when we first opened up our discussion, you said people are being groomed. This is over a period of time. So by the time the abuse starts and it starts getting a little bit more physical, they've already been mentally, the brainwashing has already started. That's already begun to occur. So by the time the physical abuse starts, and maybe at that point, if you see a family member and you notice that they're now being physically or sexually abused, like, why would you allow that to happen? They were groomed for the past however many months to get to a point where that person knew that now I have the boundaries that were up have now been removed, and I can really have my way with this person. So it happens over time that it gets to the point where physical abuse occurs. So we talked about why it's hard for someone to leave a cult. Did you want to go into that anymore, Shevel, why it's hard to leave?
Basically, I think we really covered it. It's hard to leave because of all the things you believe this person was telling you. You believed it. Also, it's hard to leave if you brought children or made children while you were there. A lot of time it's hard to leave if you want to leave and your family don't want to leave. If your mother and your father are still there, and if you leave, you won't have any relationship or any communication with them. That is difficult, that.
Right. So true. And I mean, can you imagine, like, especially if that's all you have some people that their mom and dad were in this type of religious group. So that's all they knew. And then they grew up and realized, like, I don't really want this for my life. Once they make that decision to leave, that means they are leaving everything that they've known. And I remember watching this documentary about extreme religious groups, and there were some women that they were there, some women and men that they were in these groups basically from childhood into adulthood. And then they had to go out into the real world. And once they did that, they realized they didn't have any skills. Right. So they're like, how am I going to support myself? And so some of them were like, because they were now in the real world, not sure, they didn't have to hold down a job. Like this, it was like sending a brand new baby out into the world and like figure it out. And so during that period of transition, many of them said they struggle with possibly going back because they didn't have family. They didn't know how to get a job, fill out a job application. This was all new to them. So for anyone who's listening that's maybe going through this transitional period, do you have any advice for them on this leg of their journey?
I don't see how you would go through it and truly be at peace without getting some type of counseling. because you don't want to find yourself in another situation. And I'm not talking about being in a cult, being in an unhealthy relationship. If you was in this for so long, depending on if you were born into it or in it for years, you have to learn healthy boundaries. You have to learn the red flags. And I really would suggest getting counseling. And one of the things I wanted to mention is one of the doctors that I worked with, I had a client that was in one of these type of religion, and she actually left therapy and went back into it. She was one of 10 wives in this. She was one of 10 wives. She would work and give her entire paycheck to, the leader. I mean, it was just all the I mean, and she was such a nice person, and I just felt so bad because she truly believed that he loved her. What she was doing was for, it was for a bigger picture, and I didn't understand. Now, how she got into treatment really wasn't for that. I found out while she was in treatment that she was in this organization. So it was, and I remember talking to one of the doctors, and he said to me that what they have found, that people who was in a cult religion, the symptoms they have is very similar to temporal lobe epilepsy. People who have are epileptic, the signs they have in their brain is very similar to those who were in a cult. And what a lot of things you will see is increased irritability, sometimes loss of libido, again, compulsive attention to detail, mystical states, ability to the lack of ability of understanding or having any type of humor, a heightened sense of paranoia. If you've ever been anyone around that have that suffers from epilepsy, some of these are sometimes the symptoms they have when they come out of that state, from just having a seizure because they don't know what's going on. That's the same type of, how he described it to me, is the same type of symptoms from people coming out of a cult. So, okay, can you go through that? Can you come out of there without getting any type of treatment? You can, but I would be afraid that you would still get into an unhealthy relationship and be abused again. So I really would suggest, getting help for the individual. And it's going to take some time because again, leaders like that are master manipulators, and they're good at what they do. I mean, I would even encourage family members even if you go visit, if you go to wherever they live, if you go to the church, not to go by yourself, because you never know if you'll be pulled in. Because again, they can read you. They might have learned a lot about you from your family member that's in there. You don't want to get pulled in, because again, it's not about a socioeconomics. It's not about how much education you have. It's about you wanting something fulfilled, you wanting something that they're promising you. So I would even be careful going into a situation like that. And and again, as in the beginning we talked to, a lot of those cults, it ended violent, at the end. And one of them, the Jim Jones, he actually, people that came in to try to help some of the members, he had them killed. So I would take it very serious about being careful going out to this organization alone. I would seek help from law enforcement and other organizations that do help in situations like that, because it can be very dangerous.
Yes, and so I think it's so important when you said, as far as having that support network, that's important for people that are going through this, meaning they're coming out of these type of groups or thinking about it. It's so important to have that support system, and also family members that are trying to get their family member out, because the stress, the emotional drain of that's also traumatic for the family going through it. So all parties involved, it's important for therapy to occur for all people involved in this, because this is traumatizing for everyone. So definitely it's important to get the support that you need. So this conversation, I thought was very, very interesting. And we have someone that says her daughter's into the cult, although I think it's not healthy. I haven't said anything about it. Thank you for the tips. Yeah, I think that's so great, Shevel, what you said as far as having the conversation and show like that love, that understanding, because that's what that leader of that organization is doing to its members. It's saying, I'm the only one that can understand you. I'm the one that's here to support you. And you as a family member, if you're kind of bucking against that, and that family member is spending most of their time with that religious leader, you're not going to win that battle.
Yeah. And I would look up, I would encourage the person that said that is look up motivational interviewing. And look at the 5 principles of that to help you talk to that person, because really motivational interviewing is you're interviewing the person, but you're motivating them without telling them. They're going to come to realize that maybe I need to make a change. Ask those open-ended questions. When you ask a question, make sure they can't say yes or no. They have to give you an actual explanation, answer. And again, seek help. Look at organizations in your community that can help you, because you don't have to do that alone. Like Kai said, this is draining on the family as well, traumatizing for the family as well. So I would encourage you, to seek guidance. That's, we're here, we're in this world together,
Yes.
we can help one another.
So true. And so thank you so much, Shevel, for coming on to have this conversation. For those that are listening, again, please make sure you give this video a thumbs up and share if you think that this is important information that should be shared with others. I appreciate that. And Shevel, if people want to learn more about you, I just put your website in the chat. So how can people learn more about you on your social media account and also your podcast?
Yes. So my website is addiction-prevention.org. I'm on Facebook, Addiction Prevention, Instagram, Addiction Prevent. If you want to listen to my podcast, it's the Embrace Wellness podcast is on YouTube and all of any type of podcast streaming sites I'm on. And basically what I focus on is, finding, peace, happiness, contentment within. And we do that by what we think about, how we change. If we change the way we think, a lot of time it affects the way we respond to things, and we can get the life we want to live. So yeah, listen to my podcast. It just started last month. And I do a lot of trainings on substance use, mental health, and wellness.
Yes, so thank you so much, Shevel, for joining. And I want to let everyone know really quick, every Thursday, the last Thursday of every month, Shevel and I do a wellness happy hour that's live right here on the platform. So our next wellness happy hour is Thursday, February 25th at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So please make sure you join. We're going to be talking about SAD, seasonal affective disorder. So we're going to provide you with some tips that can help you get through the winter months, to turn that frown upside down. Yes. So make sure you join us for that. And you will see that on all our social media account. Again, that will be live. So please join us for that. And with that being said, thank you all so much for your support for season 2. I greatly appreciate it. And I look forward to you joining me on several special virtual events that I'll be having live on the podcast. So you guys have a great night, and I'll talk in soon. Again, Shevel, thanks for joining.
Thank you. Good night.